Parshas Vaeschanan starts off with the very, very famous Medrash of HaKadosh Baruch Hu listening to Moshe Rabbeinu's tefillos of 515 and telling him, don't do any more. We can only daven 515, and I'm not letting you go into Eretz Yisrael. Before I get into the topic, I want to ask an interesting question. We all know this Medrash, but we all don't know the following question. How many times did Aaron HaKohen daven to go into Eretz Yisrael? The answer is 0. He did not daven to go into Eretz Yisrael. And Megala Amukos, a very famous Perush, he was buried in Krakow, I was at his kever, asked that question and points out that there's a pasuk that we had previously in Parshas Matos, V'yisem nikiyim b'Hashem u'mi Yisrael. We have to be blameless and spotless in the eyes of Hashem and Yisrael. Interesting observation made by Rabbi Moshe Dannenbaum in the Torah Anytime, that this pasuk is Kemat, never being mekuyim by anyone, because it's so hard to do, to be both blameless in the eyes of Hashem and in the eyes of Yisrael. However, Aaron HaKohen is never recorded as having davened to Hashem to enter Yisrael. Why? Well, he was afraid that others might suspect him of having ulterior motives. As a Kohen, he would get the Manos Kahuna, and when he came into Yisrael, perhaps that would be the reason he wants to go there. He's not only there to get all the Kahuna gifts. The possibility of being misunderstood was so much so, he did not even daven to enter Yisrael, so he should be naki, he should be clear, even from those who mistakenly made an assumption. So that is an interesting aside to the tefillos of Moshe Rabbeinu. However, Moshe Rabbeinu's davening to Hashem and his machlekes in the Gemara as to when that occurred, those tefillos. But whichever shita we take, when did that happen? That happened before Hashem commanded Moshe Rabbeinu to take Nekama from Midian. And we know that Klal Yisrael refused to send out the soldiers because they knew that this haftacha was that if Moshe Rabbeinu was going to die, they didn't want to be the goyim to his misa. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, Vayimasru is the word, that they were given against their will. Now, that's fascinating. The pasuk says in Pirkei Avos, Lo alecha hamalacha ligmar. Your job is not to look at what HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you as a task and say, I've got to do it all, because we can't. Obviously we can't. For so many reasons we can't. However, in the Yalkut Shimoni it says you shouldn't say I can't do it because it's too much or too hard, and you have to do what you do and can do. And they bring a mashal here. The mashal is, there was a king once who had a palace with his grounds, and in the grounds there happened to be a hole opened up, a big bar opened up. So he hired workers to fill in the bar. And one of the workers, who was not terribly bright, said, there's no way that I'm going to start to fill in this bar, because it's so big I'll never be able to do it. The second worker says, I know this bar is big, I'm getting paid by the day. If I'm paid by the day, I'll do a day's work, I'll do what I can in one day, and if there's another day, I'll do another day. I'll do what I can to fulfill my obligation for that day. And that is, I'm accountable upon myself to do the work for the time that I am hired for. So I'll begin to start doing it now. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to us, what difference does it make to you? You are a day worker, meaning us. You do your schar, you do what you can do, and I'll give you a schar for all that you do. There's a Maaseh Shehoya, and this is very interesting. Maaseh Shehoya, when the Yetev Lev, the Baal Yetev Lev, who is the Baal Yetev Lev? His name is Rabbi Kusil Yehuda Teitelbaum, a gigantic man in his time, became even more famous because of his very, very famous son, the Satmar Rebbe. Rebbe Eilish was the Yetev Lev's son. But the Yetev Lev stands on his own. He became an old man and was quite ill, and his family was desperate to help him. They wanted to get one of these gigantic doctors, one of the mumchim of the door, to come in to help him. In those days, they called a specialist or a consultant a professor. So they wanted to call a professor. He told them, I don't want you to bring me a professor. So they said to him, why? Why do you not agree? He says, I'm going to tell you a story. Now, this is the story. Rabbi Yoel Sirkis was a mechaber of a sefer called Bayis Chadash. Many of you may not have heard of the words Bayis Chadash, but if you look at the initials, Bayis Chadash is the Bach. The Bach is one of the premier Mefarshim on Shulchan Aruch. So one time he came to visit his son-in-law. His son-in-law was a Turei Zahav. That name's a little bit more familiar, and he is the Taz. Now they've had monumental machlokesim, the Bach and the Taz, father-in-law, son-in-law, but it doesn't matter. It was all L'Shem Shemayim. So that's what counts. So he came to visit his son-in-law, the Taz, and everyone from the city came out to greet him. It's the Bach. He's world famous. Okay, there was one young man who was not interested. He didn't come to see him. He actually went. He actually had a meeting with him. Didn't even give him a Shalom Aleichem. Didn't talk to him at all. So the Taz says, "Why are you not coming to give a Shalom Aleichem to my father-in-law, the Bach?" He says, and he answered him, Eliyahu Novi came to me and told me that the Bach is in Cherem, in the Beis Din Shel Maila. That's impressive all by itself. So he said, why? He says, one time the Bach was walking on his way, and he came across a town in his path, and there was a big Din Torah in that town between two people. What was the Din Torah? It was a person who had purchased a wagon load of lumber. And the buyer said, I promise to pay you 3 zehuvim, 3 gold coins. And the seller says, you told me you're going to give me 10 gold coins. And they had this big machlokes, and no one could resolve it. So they asked the Bach to step in and give the machlokes. So the Bach came to this, and he heard that there's a machlokes, and there's a Din Torah, and he says, what is the issue? He says, it's an issue of 10 versus 3. He says, that's what you're going to stop me on my road to go and take time here to do this? Not worth it. At that moment, a Kitra came out in Shemayim, and they said, he is going into Cherem. Why? Famous halacha that we know, Din Pruta Kedin Meya. By us Yidden, from a Yidden, there's no such thing as small claims court. The issue is the principle, not the amount. And therefore, and he was punished for that. So the Taz asked the Bach, came to the Bach and said, is that true? He said, yeah, it actually did happen. It really was. So they were there, and they realized that this Avrech, this young man, was a shlich from Shemayim to rectify the situation. There could be a Beis Din in the place where the story occurred, where the Avrech was, and they were done the brach, and they took away the nidui, they took away the cherem, and they were matir his nizifa from the Bach. Okay, so the Bach realized that this young man is no ordinary young man, and he came over to him. He says, "I see that you're choshev ma'od. I'd like you to do me a favor. I have here my manuscript on my sefer called Bayis Chadash. Do me a favor and look it over. Tell me what you think of it." And he said, "Okay," and because I want to publish it. And he agreed. And he took the Ksav Yad. And a certain number of days later, he came over to me and said, "Have you looked at my sefer?" He says, "Yes." He says, "Can you return it to me?" He says, "No." He says, "Even if it goes 20 years, I will not give you the sefer back," which of course is pretty impressive. And he says, "Your sefer is gewaldic. It is fabulous, but I know that if I give you back the sefer, you will die shortly thereafter. So I don't want to be goyrem, because your avodah in Olam Hazeh is done. So I want to hold back and delay giving you back the sefer." So the Bach says, if that's the reason, I'm willing to give up my life and my neshama to Kadosh Baruch Hu. I don't want you to delay my sefer, because that is important for me to distribute around the world. And the Bacher heard that, the Avrech heard that, and returned in a sefer, and exactly that's what happened. Shortly after he got the sefer back and was published, he passed away. All of this story was said by the Yetev Lev. Yetev Lev says to the people around him, I know my time is up. I know I feel it. I did my avodah in olam hazeh, and I don't want you to call this doctor because my days are limited, and I'll take. I realize that this is month for me to go, so I don't want any delay to delay my going. Now, that's what a Kodesh Baruch Hu has a relationship with Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was given a tzavah, Dud Necham Nikmas Yisrael B'Midjan, and Moshe Rabbeinu ran to do it. He ran to do it. What do we learn from this? And we know he passed away shortly thereafter. A person has to understand our Mesoira. What is our purpose in life? Our purpose in life is not to spend time down here. Our purpose in life is to do Ritzayin Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu davened, and he said, I want to go there, not because of his own personal gain. He davened in Vaeschanan because he wanted to do more mitzvahs. Hashem said, you have fulfilled your tafkid, you did my Ritzayin, now is the time for you to go. And once Moshe Rabbeinu heard that, he immediately ran to do Hashem's will, whether it was by Midjan, whether it was by not davening anymore. And his last mitzvah, which we know Moshe Rabbeinu's last mitzvah, was to go up on the Har Nevo and give up his neshama. So this is the lesson that we get. No matter what our role in life is, and we don't come anywhere near the great people we've just talked about, our tafkid is to do Hashem's ratzon, each of us in our own way. And if we do that, we fulfill our tafkid, then we will be zoichet to Chayei Olam Haba, and we'll be making HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Hana infinite. Good Shabbos.